One of the really nice nostalgic memories and experiences that I've had in the past is eating at mall food courts. These shopping centers and malls, at least in the past when they were a lot more popular, had some interesting food courts with mostly affordable choices in a convenient location, which a lot of people found really important. And that's why a lot of people mainly chose to eat in food courts, is because it was almost like a dining choice of last resort. And I'm here to tell you that if you do find a nice shopping center or mall that still has a pretty new and modern food court, then you're going to be pleasantly surprised by the amount of options that there are available to eat. Different types of cuisine, a wide range of taste that is going to be suitable for the different preferences of different people, which is great, especially if you're going to go and meet with people in a group that maybe have people that have different tastes in food, or they just want to eat different things. Not everybody's on the same page with what they want to eat. So if you go to a restaurant, sometimes you're kind of stuck in a certain type of vibe, a certain type of atmosphere. And even though restaurants have a wide variety of things to choose from a menu, a food court can't be beat for simply having a lot more choice in that regard. Beyond that, food courts can also be a great place to be in a social, lively, and upbeat environment, because when you go to the food court in a mall, there's probably going to be a few people, maybe a lot of people ordering food, and it's a bustling crowd in many cases, especially if you go during a semi-busy time. And just being around a lot of people could be something that is good for you, or depending on how you're feeling, or if you've been stuck at work all week in an office, or if you're home and you needed to get out of the house, maybe you just haven't been going out as much. Being in a place where there is a good chance you're going to be surrounded by a lot of people. I'm not saying in a claustrophobic way, but I'm saying in a nice way where you're looking around and you're seeing a lot of people ordering food, eating, having a good time. Then a food court could provide that. And I think those type of social feelings is something that you get at a food court, which is not the same at a regular restaurant. The quality of the food, you might get good food, you might not. Sometimes I like to get foods at food court that I often maybe don't try at a restaurant, because I'm not in the mood. Or sometimes at a restaurant you really can't see the food in the same way that it's going to be plated unless you peek at somebody else's tray or food that's being served and see if it looks good to you. But at a food court, you could just walk around, glance at all the different types of foods, and there's a higher likelihood that you might be able to see more foods and maybe even try out something a little bit different that you wouldn't normally do or commit to at a restaurant without actually being able to really visualize the food and see it. But at a food court, again, it's open, and you could see a lot more of the food, how it's prepared in many cases, and at least how it's presented and how it's going to look. And you can kind of gauge to see if that is something that you might want to try. So the food court, I think, could be exciting and fun in that way as well. So for social reasons, it can't be beat, especially for certain social gatherings, or if you're meeting someone. Sometimes a food court could be a nice alternative to a restaurant. It's just something different. You could still just have a very simple time, have a cup of coffee at a food court and relax there talking to someone. But you could also have a pretty nice meal, maybe have a couple of different things, and still have that dining experience, but in a more lively social environment, which could be something that will enhance the experience. Some people find that certain situations are better suited for being in a social environment with people surrounding you, versus other situations are okay if they are in a more intimate atmosphere with less people around you. So it just depends on the situation, but at least a food court gives you that extra option. Next, I'm going to cover some basic things that I think you might want to consider, just keep in the back of your mind, to maybe enhance your next food court experience at a mall, especially if you haven't been to one in a while. Some of these things are obvious and you may already know them, but this is just maybe to remind you of some of these things. So one of the things is, don't be afraid to maybe ask for substitutions. This is a good way to make sure that you optimize the food that you want according to your preferences. So if you have particular dietary requirements or specific needs and wants regarding what you like, you can customize the food and ask to see if the people there can swap out certain foods that you want and really make your meal even better according to your preferences and what you want in the food. So it's another great way that a food court can really add value to your particular experience. Another thing is, don't be afraid to combo the meals. This is great if you are able to find the food court that, depending on their policies, you may be able to get a little bit of different things, and then you can create a combo dish of a variety of things. And it's a way that you could also sample different things and experience a more diverse array of foods, and even try out foods from different cultures that you haven't tried out before. And it's a good way to explore and discover new things. And who knows, you may even like some of these new foods and order them again in the future. And if you want to save money at a food court, one of the easiest things that you could do is to avoid buying a beverage with your food at a food court. That usually is going to be a significant amount compared to if you just brought along your own beverage or a bottle of water. This is totally acceptable and totally fine at a food court. There's no really specific policies about that. You could bring your own bottle of water or your own can of soda or bottle of soda. Bring it with you and maybe just ask for a cup of ice if you do like your beverage to be very cold. Some vendors will provide that at low or no cost to you. So just check to see if that's the case. But either way, a bottle of water at a food court is a good plan B for your beverage choice. Another great thing about food courts is some of the vendors can be really, really nice, and they can actually tell you a lot about certain foods to give you some quick recommendations about what you might want to have, especially if you're talking about foods that are from a different culture than you're used to. And again, I highly recommend that you utilize food courts occasionally, at least, to try to experiment with foods from different cultures. In addition, this is a good time to actually talk to the food vendor there and ask about mix and match recommendations, what goes good with what. And again, I think I alluded to this before, but just combining different types of foods, mixing and matching options is another great way that they can help you out with that and kind of point you in the right direction so you don't mix and match foods that don't go together at all. And then just keep in mind that as far as the timing of your visit to the food court, just be mindful that if you are the kind of person that wants to not avoid crowds but not be overly crowded, or guarantee that you're going to get a seat, a desirable seat to enjoy your food, then just be aware of the obvious busy times at a food court. Usually it's going to be lunch, dinner, but if you go off peak times like around 2:30, 3 o'clock, then you're probably not gonna have that many people, especially if it's during a weekday. That's probably an even better time to go if you want to try out this food court strategy and just kind of get a sense of what it's like without a lot of people, and you can get an idea of what it's like, if you want to try out different foods. But if you really want the full experience, I actually enjoy going when it's pretty busy. One of the ways that you could enjoy a nice compromise between not too busy but still having enough people that makes the ambiance feel lively is to go during the week but towards dinner time. That's a time when you can go, or lunchtime during the weekend is another time where you can go to certain malls that have food courts and it will be lively. But if you get there early enough, you might be able to find a good seat. And again, if you go in with the attitude that it's just going to be a lot of people if you go during peak times, but you get the advantage of being in that social environment with a lot of people around you and still sampling the food from the food court and having all those interesting benefits of enjoyment that you can get uniquely at a food court and not at some other just plain Jane restaurants. So anyway, there you have it. I like food courts. I do enjoy them on occasion. I'm not saying they're better than restaurants, but it's a different option. So if you do have the option of trying out a food court, don't be afraid to give it a shot. If you haven't been to one in a while, maybe now you think differently and have a different attitude, perception of things. Maybe you're more mature now and can appreciate certain things, whereas before you thought things were too crowded. Now you think, well, you're in a social environment. And also before, maybe you didn't have a wide range of things that you wanted to try out in terms of food. But now as you mature, maybe you want to be more adventurous with your food choices and expand your culinary horizons. And why not do it at a food court? It's cheap. Even though it is mall prices, you're paying for the experience of sitting in a social environment. And yeah, so definitely consider food courts. I went to a food court recently and had a great time. So that's why I made this video. But it's not for everybody, and I wouldn't do it all the time. But it's a worthy option to consider, especially if you're going to be at the mall. Anyway, so with that said, guys, hope you got something out of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.